the 7 team. I don't know, maybe a hangover you call it. But the thing about the start for Justin Allgaier is it's been sloppy, you know, with a highlight there in Atlanta. But when you come here to Phoenix, you're going to remember this moment, winning a championship, his first in so many attempts. I've always said the
car. Their setup to start today is based on the setup that Connor Zillage ran last year. Crew Chief Andrew Overstreet worked on that car a year ago, so they have a good baseline that they want to try to build on here this weekend for the one car at Kvapil.
Dylan pointed it out. Last week, the result does not show the performance there of Carson Kvapil. That was one of the more unbelievable performances out of a young driver I've seen in a long time, because he doesn't have a road course background. He doesn't come from that type of racing like Connor Zillage does, but he's taken to it so quickly. He's in that Josh Wise program. They've given him great instruction, great preparation, and he showed that. And when the moment was there for the taking, he rose to it, and that's what you want to see out of a young driver. So impressive in a completely different scenario here at Phoenix. This place could not be more different than Coda in the way you drive it, Jamie. This place rewards platform control, taking care of the tire, finding the grip as you move around and slide around. Just such a different scenario from what we did last week.
And Adam, I think about getting to have Justin Allgaier as a teammate come into this racetrack. You mentioned it. He's won here twice, but he's been the best car here multiple times and not gotten to victory lane. But knowing that the setup that's in the 7 car, the balance that he has, and being able to reference that for someone like Carson that's never been here before, it's a good baseline. You know, as you look at the overall lap times, I mean, Allgaier's went out and run a 27.68. It's almost 3/10 quicker than the second place car. But I say all that just because if I'm the one car, I know that I just need to focus on me right now, knowing that the setup we have is going to be able to produce that lap time when I can figure out the line and the braking and all the inputs that I need to do here.
We've heard from Dylan Welch. Now we go downstairs and say good morning to Kim Kuhn. How are you, Kim?
I'm doing well. Beautiful weather here in Arizona, but Nick Sanchez making some of his first few laps out on the track. That was by design. The team told me they were going to wait a little bit because this is a track that tends to get a little dirty, a little dusty, and they wanted that track cleaned off before Nick put his first laps down here in practice. They're also trying something a little bit different. Crew Chief Patrick Donahue told me in years past they haven't hit on exactly what they need here at Phoenix. Plus, rookie Nick Sanchez likes a little bit different feel in the car than past drivers, so they are trying something this weekend. The hope just to make a clean 200 laps. They've had speed each of the first 3 weeks. They just haven't had all of the finishes that they've been looking for. Nick, though, not his first time here in the Xfinity Series. He's one of the few rookies that has experience at Phoenix Raceway.
And Kim, I can attest to that. We were terrible here the last 2 years. So they definitely had to search that big machine car for something different. Nick actually ran his Kim Lutu back in 2022, qualified third here back in November of 2022, so had a lot of speed. But this is a tricky place that just, the car has to do multiple things at both ends of this racetrack, and at both ends you're asking it to do something different. and you're asking it to be in a different place. And so there's a lot of what I talk about, platform control, that's important. And the driver can make a big difference in how you drive that car, how you brake in the corners. That can really affect it. So the team, I think more so than other places, you really have to gel between the setup of the car and the way the driver drives it. And that's a really tricky thing about this place.
I like waiting to go out. I think that's a good call. We had an ARCA race here last night. It's a different tire. Don't go out and give him a false read of what you have on that old rubber. I was actually surprised to see some of these other cars jump out so quick, but yeah, I like that.
You get 25 minutes, only one set of tires in this practice, so you can wear them out really quickly if you go out and run a bunch of laps early in the session. Let's do a segment I'd like to call Parker on Parker, Kligerman on Retzlaff. Can I buy a vowel?
Yes, you may have. You can have a P. How about that?
Disappointing for this team last week, though.
Definitely a major disappointment, missing the race at COTA, but I went and spoke to Tommy Joe Martins and Parker yesterday. Just was kind of curious what happened there. Parker's a great qualifier. You most likely today you'll see great qualifying pace out of him. He's so fast at these short tracks. And what happened last week is, you look back at practice, he got very few laps. They had a lot of mechanical issues within that Ford team. He barely got any laps, was forced to go into qualifying. You basically had one lap in qualifying, so unfortunately the way the points worked out, they missed the race. But Tommy Joe told me from that, they've actually made some personnel changes on this Ford team after that weekend, made some improvements, they feel like, amongst the team and that sort of thing. So sometimes, you know this, Jamie, you got to have a hard moment to kind of improve, and that's definitely what they've done at Alpha Prime with Parker Retzlaff.
Jeremy Clements 10th right now. This weekend making his 501st career start.
I wondered where you're going with that. He had a big moment here just a few moments ago. We'll take a look at this. And I love it. He's got these white gloves on. You can watch inside how hard he's working. This is coming off turn 4. Oh, right on the edge. I got it. No harm, no foul.
You'll pay for that in the next corner. That right rear tire will not be happy with you. This place, turns 1 and 2 is flat. You will lean on the right rear a ton, but it's a more conventional corner. 3 and 4 is one of the most awkward corners in NASCAR, I believe, potentially, because it requires you to set the min speed point very early in the corner and then be in the throttle so early that you get moments like Jeremy had there where you're begging the right rear to have grip and it just doesn't have it. The track falls away and you end up with those big slides.
You better save it, though, because if you get in the wall, we're racing in like 4 hours. There's not a big turn. Qualified it in the show. Unfortunately, an early exit, but getting them in was big for points early in the season, and here we are set for round 4. And well, everybody going to make the show today. Only 38 cars here in Phoenix.
Yeah, the road courses have become tricky. You had some unique guys that show up. The 17 car obviously showed up last week. We had some. It's made those races a little bit harder to get into than the traditional ovals that we have today.
I'll say this, if you're a fan of the Xfinity series, the CW app is your friend. Not only do we have practice and qualifying every week, but if you want the battle can, everything you need, real easy to download, update it on your TV, on your phone, iPad, whatever it is. And we have got so much good coverage. I know that you love listening to Jamie and Parker and their tremendous analysis of these races, but if you want like a little side-by-side or something, download the app and you can get plenty more coverage there.
Hey, I didn't come here to get complimented, all right?
Actually, I was only going to compliment Jamie, but
that's
I
true.
I just
Okay, that made more sense.
Halfway through Group 1 practice, Justin Allgaier continues at the top. Here's a breakdown, 7 radio.
The lap before, I literally was passing a guy lifted. It's really good balance. Tight to the center, neutral, middle out.
Dylan, what's the back end of that, my man?
Yeah, well, it's interesting listening to this radio, too. I talked to Justin this morning, and they obviously were really strong here in the fall. But if you remember, they had to go to a backup car, and the setup wasn't as strong, Justin felt like, in that backup car versus what they had in their primary car when they unloaded. And Justin wanted to come back here this weekend and try something even more out of the box or even more wild. And he said Jim Pullman, the crew chief, kind of talked him out of it and said, let's just stick with what we know here, which generally works pretty well. But Justin looked at this weekend as a way to not only try and learn some things for the fall, but also try and learn what not to do in the fall. So there's a fine balance between chasing your tail in this morning practice versus what you're going to have later in the race conditions. But these guys not resting on their laurels, always trying to get better despite being really good here.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say when we all think of Jim Pullman, we don't think wild. We think pretty straight down the middle. He referenced his car being tight in the middle. Every car here is tight in the middle. If it's not, you drive in, it's a little bit harder until you get that little bit of push or understeer. You just want to have a little bit less than everybody else. And I thought what the 7 team did in the backup car last fall when we were here for the championship race, to go to that backup car, start in the back, drive up to top 10 in stage 1, it was really impressive. And I know I referenced it a little bit ago. He has been in position. I would think easily 5 races he could have won here that he didn't. Last spring here is a great example, leading with 3 or 4 laps to go, blows that left rear tire. And that could be a story again today because of cutting across that dog leg on low air pressure. It puts a lot of load on that tire. You see even that little bit he does right there inside the car, that seems harmless, but you always just wonder, like, how much load is it putting on the sidewall?
I look at Allgaier at the top, no surprise there. How about the guy in second right now? 42 of Anthony Alfredo, impressive in practice, Kim.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should stop, I think, being surprised when he makes fast laps out here. He has been able to do a lot with smaller teams with less resources. If you look at last year, he finished 15th in points last season with Our Motorsports, and he told me he made that look a lot easier than it was. Now this year with Young's Motorsports, he's back on track now after they made some slight adjustments. That first run, despite having speed, he said he was a little tight when turning and braking. He needed more turn in and through the center and thought he was on the splitter a little bit, so they had to adjust that for him. But he did note that the track is starting to rubber up, so something to consider as these drivers are giving feedback to crew chiefs. How big of the changes do you want to make, knowing the track is going to continue to change and then it's going to get even hotter under race conditions?
Kim, that's a great point because you mentioned it's cooler right now. It will be hotter later. You don't want to get tricked by that. One thing I see most of these drivers doing is they're running through this predominant line right on the yellow line. When we get to the race, they'll be below the apron. They'll be all over this racetrack, which is what you try to do as you start to lose the tires. But one thing about Anthony Alfredo, I think, is I look at what he's done in these smaller teams, and Kim alluded to it. He's building a reputation similar to Ross Chastain at JD Motorsports, Landon Castle at JD Motorsports, being this guy that you can depend on to go to these smaller teams and get outsized finishes, points, that sort of thing. What he did last year at our Motorsports was super impressive. and he's continuing that at Young Motorsports. And I think there's a big opportunity for that race team in Anthony there to make the next step up.
Kim referenced the top 15 finish in points. Also won the Dash for Cash Money
That's
at
right.
Dover, which was a huge upset, I thought. Here's the 99 of Matt DiBenedetto. Another team that is just laying the foundation. First year for Viking Motorsports out of the gate strong with a couple of top 12 finishes at Daytona and Atlanta. Not where they wanted to be last week, but I would say they're still in the middle of the fairway when you think about how they came in expectation-wise in 25.
Yeah, when we met with Matt earlier this year, I mean, he's optimistic, but you also are kind of reading the body language, and I think he was realistic with the expectations for this team. But you mentioned it, 11th at Daytona, 12th at Atlanta. Being a great start to the season. It's put them in the top 20 in points right now. They've got to be happy with where they are.
He's 11th right now in practice. Carson Kvapil heading back down the pit lane. Maybe an adjustment there. Let's listen in.
So on pit road, it'll be all green, then all red at the barrels. And when he hits this opening down here at 10, he'll ease back to 2 reds, then all green.
It is such a tricky pit road here at Phoenix because of the curve, and you see how wide pit road is. Well, if you run the same speed at the very inside of pit road versus the very outside, it could be 2 miles per hour difference on the NASCAR track or lines that they have. So pit road speed, I mean, you want to get in and out of your stall good, but there's so much to be gained or lost here. And the fact that he's never been here before and doesn't have the notes. Like, that was the one thing for me I always did. You keep notes based on the lights that you have. First race, though, with this team at this track, don't push it too hard in the race because it's a big gain, but it's not worth the consequences of getting caught.
And one more variable to add to that is a lot of teams will choose to use third gear here so that you can set your lights more appropriately for the turn and for the straightaway, which is completely different than every other oval you go to.
I hate that.
So it makes a whole other part to it. Right.
Yeah.
So it's just even tougher. So there's so many things to remember as a rookie for Carson Kvapil. That's such a ton of variables to add into just trying to do a really tricky pit road.
5th in practice, 2020 winner at Phoenix, Brandon Jones. One here driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. Back under the coach's umbrella. All 5 of his career wins have come at JGR and likely will be a player later today. On the board, Dylan.
They've actually been making a couple fairly significant changes. Harrison has just been tight, which, as you guys talked about, is kind of the status quo here at Phoenix. It seems like he wants more roll speed, but they made a couple track bar adjustments, and then they've actually come in and made an adjustment to the toe, which is the angle that the front tires are pointed. So a couple things that are maybe more normal adjustments, but then some more fine-tuning things as well, just to get Harrison a little bit more comfortable.
Well, Dylan was making me nervous there when he was going to describe toe. I'm like, this might take a while right here. That was a good job, though, Dylan. A little surprised that Harrison's not quicker. This is this team gets their cars from the Haas factory team, and as I look back to the last couple of years here, Cole Custer, Riley Herbst won the last race we were here, and they were dominant cars, super fast. I'd just be curious to see if he can get this going better, though. I think this car is going to run better than where they are right now in practice.
I wholly agree, and I think it's a big transition for him from the next-gen car to this. I did a lot of sim testing for RCR and the next-gen car here at Phoenix, and the difference between that and the Xfinity car felt like a different racetrack. So we go on board here, Garrett Smithley in the 14. I just want to kind of point out, so down here in 3 and 4, you'll put your left sides right on that yellow line. There's a little bit of grip down in that paint, and you want to exit all the way out to the wall. But as we head down to 1 and 2, we'll see. Oh, that was down coming in. So if this was the race, though, you would actually run down here at some points. We saw last in November, there was a ton of grip down here, and you'll run all the way over there. So here we are in 1 and 2 on a replay, and he's a little bit above the yellow line. You'll use that yellow line for some grip, but in the race, you'll be all the way down like you're heading to pit lane. It feels like you're heading towards those barrels, and then you shoot back on the racetrack. It's almost disorienting. It's sketchy the way you head towards it. We were talking to Sam Mayer yesterday, and he and I were commenting that last year you'd run so low, it was like you pointed the car at those barrels and that inside wall, and then it just sort of slid out at the last moment, and you'd enter back on the racetrack. It's just so wild, all the lines you can run here.
That used to be the front straightaway. I mean, 1 and 2 used to be 3 and 4, and then you had that run down the front straightaway. They reconfigured this place a handful of years ago, and it's one of the more unique layouts that we see, especially when you come off of turn 4 and across the dog leg. Here's Brennan Poole on 44. The only driver from Alpha Prime to make the show last week at COTA.
Minute left here, 2 laps probably, 2 laps left.
Of Parker Retzloff earlier, and Brad Perez also unable to qualify last week.
You hear his spotter coming on telling you how much time they have left in practice, thinks he can get 2 more laps out of it. You make these changes, and you want to go out there and just get as good of a feel for it as you can prior to having to go in and make these adjustments for qualifying. But I think a top 20 for this team last weekend, I think that's a great result for Brennan and the team. It's been a little bit of a rough start, but is he going to try to do a little bit? I thought he was going to do
see, that's how low you run.
I thought he was trying to come in right there. It's I always liked at the end of these practices, the last thing I would do is practice coming to pit road if we need to make a green flag stop.
No out of bounds at Phoenix, by the way. We've got it at some of the other venues we visit, but none here. Nick Sanchez is 6th and chasing those Chevys from Junior Motorsports.
Hey, listening to Junior Motorsports, they're working on backing up their corners and getting it pointed and then driving off. RCR just sent me a message and said it looks like we're over driving and driving the push into it.
Happy, I'll fix that.
I would have keyed my radio so I didn't hear that. Because I'm like, okay, like it's so hard. Like when you're out there driving and they tell you, you just need to lift earlier. You're like, thanks. I can't lift any earlier. If I could, I'm just gonna go slower. It's a difficult racetrack, but yeah, the spotter pointing out the obvious there.
There's so much more technical aspects to driving than just lifting earlier, and what the amount you're braking and everything. It's just too that's too general of a term to use.
Group 1 practice is done. 5 of the top 6 are Chevrolets. No surprise, Allgaier leads the way. Alfredo is 2nd, and that man, Rookie of the Year contender Kvapil is 3rd.
the race later today?
Yeah, we learned a lot. We were able to make a lot of adjustments there, and being second on the leaderboard to last year's champ is a big accomplishment for our team. It's obviously only practice, but this is a pretty technical track, and it's really difficult to have everything you need to have success in the race. So fortunately, our Dude Wipe Chevrolet is almost as fast as Xfinity Mobile, and I'm pretty confident that we can maintain that speed through qualifying and then the race. So we had enough time to go through all the adjustments we wanted to, even though we were pretty good off the truck. And from here on out, just going to be about playing our cards right in the race, having good execution all day long, and finishing up front.
Anthony Alfredo will be one to watch. Dylan, he finished this race last year in the top 10.
And Kim, so will be Justin Allgaier, who is fastest in practice, and obviously the site of his championship win a year ago. But we talked this morning just kind of about some of the differences in practicing right now versus the conditions later in the race today. Are you happy with what you have and what you think you'll have for later?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to tell. You know, obviously the sun's out. I just told you I think it's going to be a hotter, slicker race than what I was expecting it to be. You know, we were on the ARCA rubber. You know, I think that's the one negative to be in that first group is just, you know, track conditions are a little bit different than what we're going to see. I think fall off in that first group was a little more than I thought it would be, but I think you're going to see a little bit tighter fall off in the second round. But really proud of Jim Holman and this whole 7 team. They brought it really, really fast. Brent Fresh at Gold Chevrolet, obviously so far as fast as Xfinity Mobile, but we got a long way to go. Got a lot of work to do. I think qualifying is going to be the outlier for me. How much does the truck change from right now when we get off the racetrack to what it looks like in qualifying? So proud of everybody at Junior Motorsports. You know, both of our Chevrolets in that group were fast. Obviously, hopefully we can get the other 2 here to be fast as well and see what this afternoon brings.
Everybody chasing the 7 right now, Adam.
And he mentions qualifying. You want to be good in practice for sure. You better be good in qualifying because your margins, if you start outside the top 3 or 4 rows here, the numbers suggest you're not going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, and you know, Justin mentioned the ARCA rubber being on the track. That's why I was shocked that they went out right away because it can affect the balance of your car. And he talked about the lap time fall off and it being slicker. I feel like we all thought it being 40 degrees this morning that there maybe wouldn't be as much lap time fall off, but he had almost a second and a half over 30 laps of fall off, which is huge. At this track, but Parker, it does seem like as this track ages, you continue to have more and more fall off over a run.
Oh yeah, tremendous amount. And you really can change your fortunes at the end of the run by what you do at the beginning of a run, which wasn't the case here 8-10 years ago, but this place is just continuing this desert. The sand around here has just gotten more and more abrasive. And that's why you're seeing all these different lines you'll see in the race and trying to run on the apron. You're just searching for grip because, especially as Justin alludes to, as it gets hotter, this place loses a tremendous amount of grip. 1 and 2 becomes so slick, it's so flat. And 3 and 4 feels like you're dealing with a game of inches as to where you place your left front.
3 races this year, 3 different winners. The most recent, the guy you see on screen, 88, Connor Zilic. You know, the numbers suggest he was dominant last week at COTA, leading 26.
I like that he referenced afterwards and noted he was overly aggressive. And he had made some enemies coming back to the field.
He said he called 3 drivers before he ever went to do his press conference for the win.
And I love that. Such maturity. We can't harp on that enough, and you'll hear us talk about that all year long because he is so mature and he's just so cerebral about driving and all the other stuff around it. And I just think when, you know, he had such a speed advantage, he didn't need to take those risks. He didn't have to be so aggressive. And I know going forward, he'll take that note, and the next time he's put in that position, if he is, he'll be more careful coming to the field.
Connor got the win last week. The other 2 victories this season, courtesy of Richard Childress Racing. Jesse Love in the season opener at Atlanta, Austin Hill.
Yeah, Austin was one of the guys in that Championship 4 battle the last time we were here. They had, I don't remember what happened with their strategy, but they didn't have the tires at the end. He did have the best track position right at the end of that race, but not enough car to hang on to. He though, just, I feel like no matter what track we go to, is always a factor at the end of these races.
He's got 11 career victories. 8 have come in the draft. 2 of the 3 that didn't are the places we'll see the next couple of weeks. He's won at Las Vegas. He's won at Homestead. And I'll tell you what, I saw the 2 in the garage yesterday, and I thought it was Austin Hill. This is going to be confusing all day long when you see Love and Hill together.
What has
on
RCR
track.
done for their spotters here?
That's what I was thinking.
What have they done to the play-by-play guy? Are you kidding me? I'm going to be selfish here. Yeah.
Our poor director.
Roger Benson, our director. He's seeing double.
Oh, my goodness. Come on, give us some sort of different colors here. Some whale yellow, or red on that thing would have helped a little bit. But I'm looking at the times here, and we definitely are seeing that the first group had a lot faster track condition, just seeing the fastest times that this group is able to set down. So kind of what just Allgaier said about that arc of rubber and that track condition, we're seeing that now. Maybe this is more representative of what we'll actually experience later today, so these drivers are getting some better track time.
This is kind of a short track, right? I mean, not officially, but Phoenix does.
It's debatable, but I would agree.
Race like a short track. I say that because Jesse Love, Sheldon Creed had a bit of a moment last week on track at Coda.
Just slight contact, Adam. Just two friends racing. You see Jesse Love runs Sheldon a little bit wide right there, and Sheldon, fortunately, was able to catch right back up and well, repay the favor.
How does your two-car work in the gravel? Let's find out. You know, Sheldon used to drive that car, so there's a little bit maybe behind this. This is what happened on social media after. I mean, I just love it. But this was kind of heat of the moment stuff because we talked to both of them in the garage yesterday.
Parker.
Well, they're in a group chat together, and Zilich asked him if they were cool now, and Sheldon said, "We settled it like men" on Twitter.
Wait a minute. Zilich is winning races, leading laps, and he's also a peacemaker among the other drivers in the series.
He's a mediator.
I think he's an instigator is what I think he is. My favorite part of the conversation with Jesse Love yesterday was we were talking to Connor Zilich in the garage about his win, and he was just kind of going over his week, and when Jesse walked up, he kicked Connor in the back of the legs. He's like, "What are you talking about, your ego?" And I'm like, it's so much fun to hear these two guys just go back and forth and obviously race hard.
Well, the other thing is last night the ARCA race was here, and they're buddies with Brent Cruz, who won. He's only 16, right? But he wins the ARCA race driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. And he comes walking through the garage, and they're like, "Man, if he doesn't win in the Gibbs car." I mean, they talk trash like you do on the playground, but it's in big-time, top-level, national stock car racing. It's awesome, the relationship all these young guys have.
It's great. And, Sheldon is so calm. His demeanor is so calm all the time. And Jesse alluded to that. He said, if you're going to have a run-in with anyone, it's great that it's Sheldon because he's not going to take the next level. He'll be very level-headed about it. He's so calm. I had that experience with Sheldon the last 2 years a couple times, but we were able to talk it out and never let it go further than the week that it happened. And I think that's actually a testament just to Sheldon's maturity and his ability to sort of put things aside and say, hey, if the roles were reversed, this is how I'd want it to be handled, and that's what he does. And so they're able to move on, and we'll see if that beef continues or not.
Yeah, this will be a car right here to watch. Alex Bowman, his only start in the Xfinity Series so far this year that we know he's going to run. This car, though, every time it's on the track, runs really well. And when I think of Alex Bowman, I always think back to 2016 when he filled in for Dale Earnhardt Jr., qualifies on the pole, leads the majority of the race, and you think, it looked like he was in position to win. Obviously did not because of a late race restart. But this track, even though he had that success, it hasn't been great for him on the Cup Series side. I think he's here this weekend just trying to get track time. And I know you referenced the cars being completely different, but there might be something small that he learns about a line or just restart something that he can learn that he can maybe apply to Sunday.
This car won twice last year and was second last week in their debut for the campaign. William Byron driving the 17 at Coda. About the last couple of weeks for this rookie, William Sawalich, who's won here at Phoenix in ARCA competition. He's on the pole here last fall, driving for Joe Gibbs Racing on the Xfinity side, and back-to-back top 10s for the driver out of Minnesota.
Really strong start to the year for him. And when I looked at this place, I kind of had it circled for him because of that pole that he had last year. I thought that was so impressive to jump into these cars here. Qualifying here is really tough. You get one lap. The car will wiggle around and move a ton through that lap, so to be able to put a really good lap down and get the pole was very impressive. And these Joe Gibbs Racing cars, there's two types of cars you want to be at in Phoenix historically. It's Joe Gibbs Racing or the Haas factory cars. so
true.
He's in some of the best equipment. It's just those two teams, these flat tracks that require low CG, great aero. These teams just really set the benchmark in this series is where those cars are. 17
wins here all time for Joe Gibbs Racing. That's the best by a lot. We had the rookie from JGR. Here's the veteran, 19, Eric Almirola, set for his second start of the year.
Yeah, and he surprised us at Atlanta. I had him picked to win the race. It didn't look like any of the Gibbs cars were going to run well. And sure enough, right at the end, here he is going to lead the white flag lap. It looked like he was actually going to be the guy that could beat Austin Hill. Austin was able to get back around him. But, man, Eric is just the same thing, been so good at so many different tracks, and he will be a factor today.
The best in Group 2 is Taylor Gray, Eric's teammate, driving the 54 inside the top 5. Allgaier, the best overall. It's practice here in Phoenix. New Mexico, and you know, when you look at this rookie class, and we've said it, and we're going to beat it to death all year long because it is such a storyline, but 4 rookies in the top 10 last week at COTA, and 2 top 10s this year for Taylor Gray. And really, when you go to Atlanta, they crashed out. He would have been top 10 there too, probably. I just am so impressed because he never won in the Truck Series. He makes the move up, and even though he didn't win in trucks, he had a number of Xfinity starts last year where he impressed, but the one was his debut at Richmond. And when I saw what he did there, and I think about some of the characteristics of Richmond and how it is similar to what we see here, he's someone I had circled on my card a little bit for this weekend.
Yeah, and I think, and Parker referenced this, Richmond and Phoenix, like Joe Gibbs Racing has really good cars at those tracks historically. But that guy on the right, he was my crew chief when I very first started in the Xfinity Series back in 2001. And Jason Ratcliffe, it has just been incredible to watch his career and every driver that he's been paired up with. And man, if I'm a young guy, that's who I want on the pit box with me, because he's kind of lived it all and knows as well as anyone. He's been through it and can help guide him.
Jason is a top-level Cup crew chief who chooses to have the schedule of the Xfinity Series, which he's made very clear many times, but he is a great operator.
He's won here 5 times. Once in Cup, 4 in Xfinity.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, he's really good. Really good. Hey, I see this 41 car here at Phoenix, and you know what that reminds me of?
I remember. It's a long. Is it in black and white?
21 years ago.
It's a little grainy. Yeah, that was really cool to be able to win here. And it's Kyle Busch that finished second. That was the start of Kyle's career. It was cool to get to victory lane. A little chubby version of me right there.
Frosted tips, of course,
with some incredible hair. It was fun though. That car, Brian Patty was the crew chief, and it was so fast every single week that we would go out and run it. It was cool to come here and get a win.
A little different track then, too.
It was, yeah, quite a bit different.
Shortcut.
Yeah, quite a bit different than what we have right now.
What about that 41, Kim?
Yeah, we definitely need to watch the 41 and the 00, those Haas factory cars. SHR was so good here, and so Haas factory using that baseline that both Cole Custer and Riley Herbst had here specifically last season. But it was interesting talking with Sam Mayer in the garage yesterday about Phoenix specifically. You know, he grew up on shorter flat tracks, but for some reason in the Xfinity car, it just hasn't suited him. And he said that he's never gotten along with this racetrack for whatever reason, and he's hoping to change that today. Only 1 top 5 and 7 starts here. Currently, though, as you expect, as most drivers are saying, just tight in the center through here. They said they could use a little bit more pace, but overall, just fighting tight conditions.
I would have lost the bet that both of those Haas factory cars would be outside the top 10, top 15 in practice. Never would have believed that, but if you can right the ship in qualifying, you put yourself in position, and strategy could be a part of the game later today too. This is a nice look on board rookie Daniel Dye. Had that career best a couple of weeks ago at Atlanta. How low can you go?
That's about as low as you want to be.
That's
right
where
there.
you might dip that left front into that paint there, but that yellow line, there's a lot of grip in those paint areas because for whatever reason, as this place is worn, you get down there, it rubbers up, you can see the car in front, kind of touch it on the entry, maybe we'll touch it on the exit. We're going to go below here, that line, and it's just you're dealing with
Just inside of 10 minutes.
tiny game of inches of where you place that left front and where you can get the car to find the grip, and you're just, it's such a fine line here as you drive around, and especially as you lose the tire grip in the fall off.
And he missed it right there. Overdrove the entry just a little bit, got on the brakes and couldn't get back down. You want to be able to touch that most of the time. As I watch these races back, I mean, Justin Allgaier is as good as anyone here, and he was really had his left front on that paint almost every single lap. So if I'm a guy like Daniel Dye and I'm watching races, I'm watching Justin, and I'm going to try to emulate exactly what he's doing right there. I didn't hear any downshifting yet, though, which is interesting because those guys last year were downshifting at some point in the run on both ends of the racetrack. Typically, you'd only have it on one end, but it was yeah, it's interesting to see those guys aren't doing that this year.
8 days removed from celebrating his birthday and 1 week removed from that top 10 finish at Circuit of the Americas. How about it for Blaine Perkins last Saturday afternoon?
That was a great run. You know, did it really on speed as well to be in the top 10. Has a new crew chief this weekend, and Cody McKenzie, who's my engineer at Big Machine Racing, 23 and 24. He's moved over there, Jordan Anderson Racing, becoming a crew chief. He's wanted to do that for a long time. He's a really smart individual, so there's a lot of momentum for this race team. And wow, he was plotting this early to be a stock car driver.
Born to race.
Like,
kid from Bakersfield, California. When we talked to him in the pre-race, we mentioned the Kevin Harvick influence, and he didn't really have a connection to Kevin other than the fact they're both from Bakersfield. He said you just can't get away from it. If you are from Bakersfield and you're in stock car racing, you know you're going to hear a lot about Kevin.
Well, he's young enough. He could probably be Kevin's kid, so that's probably why
I hope
doesn't know
Kevin's
a lot
watching.
about him.
I really do.
I hope so too.
I hope Kevin's on the CW app. Sammy Smith won here as an 18-year-old rookie, was a senior in high school, driving for Joe Gibbs Racing. In fact, you look at the last 8 races here, 8 different winners. The only one entered here today, Sammy Smith, and here's a look back at what happened 2 years ago.
he burst onto the scene with this win, really, you know, coming into the Xfinity. It's, you know, I think though, for a young driver, there's moments that propel you forward, and there's other moments that actually make you stronger. They make you work harder. They make you better. And I think what he went through last year after the early success back in 23 has made him a better driver, a better competitor. And he talked to us about that in the preseason, about how he had to change some things in his work ethic and that sort of stuff. And I think that's only going to make him better.
And Sammy won here. It was his 13th career start. Paired now with the crew chief Philip Bell, they feel like big things are ahead, as Parker alluded to this season. Dylan, what do you have on that 21 car?
Yeah, they are down in 22nd right now and going to work trying to get it a little bit better. This was some recent radio from Austin about what he's battling.
I just can't turn the steering wheel on entry just really straight with the wheel. Once I get to the line, I have to dump a lot of wheel into it, and then it has like an over-rotation across the center, and then I kind of buzz the tires on. Throttle's down if I'm not careful with it.
And so he later elaborated a little bit on that and said, we feel like we're on ice. We just got to get the right rear in the track without killing the fronts. And this is interesting because I talked to Austin this morning. He said, we always struggle here as the track lays rubber. I always just get in a four-wheel slide. We can't figure out why when we're in the rubber, the car just doesn't do what we want it to do. It doesn't make any grip. So they sort of expected this exact battle. They just got to figure out how to get it better. So that's the challenge for the 21 right now.
Right, Dylan. I'm not surprised. This has been a tough track for Austin Hill and that 21 team, even the Championship 4 last year. And what he's talking about there, that loose on entry, then you put a bunch of wheel, that is historically what you will fight at this place, where you get the car does one thing on the entry, you ask it to do another thing in the middle, and then it does a third thing on the exit. That's called the corner being disconnected, and it's not a fun time.
Hill is 22nd, teammate Jesse Love 11th. Justin Allgaier, best overall speed. We continue our talk about rookies. 16 is Christian Eckes, 5th place last week, career best at COTA. He's the rookie that came into this year with no starts in Xfinity Series competition, but so much experience the last few years at all of these tracks in the Craftsman Truck Series, including here in the desert, where he won 2 years ago, part of the Championship 4 last season.
Yeah, they had their first 2 races. You think back to Daytona, Atlanta, good cars, but the car was just destroyed like by the time they got to the end of the race. So they want to have just a clean day today. We obviously have a lot of faith in him and his ability inside of a car. And I think that a flat track kind of fits his style. Kim, do you have more?
Yeah, and so we talk about these rookies and who they're paired with crew chief wise. It also matters who they're paired with spotter wise. And Coleman Presley is the eyes in the sky for Christian Eckes, right now coaching him through each lap and where he can find a better line. Take a listen.
2 is grabbing the apron on the entry as well. He's the one I'm comparing to. About 3/4 of his left front tire was on the apron with that same entry speed. Another headlight lower than that, and he's all 4 on the apron on exit. That was a 10th better through 1 and 2 that time. Really strong 3 and 4 right there. A lot of time made up. 28.98.
And this is not unique to this lap. It's every lap Coleman giving him that information, telling him which fastest line based on what he's seeing the track give other drivers. And I saw them yesterday in the garage. They spent close to probably an hour sitting down together talking about what lines they thought were going to work well here. So Coleman giving lots of good information to rookie driver Christian Eckes.
Coleman Presley's a student of the game.
Oh, massive student. I'm glad.
Very analytical.
And Kim pointed it out perfectly. You know, when you have a spotter like that, I'm a huge Coleman Presley fan. I've listened to him for years with Joe Logano, and the way he paints the picture and all the information he gives Joe Logano is immense. It's amazing what Joey's able to take in. But that sort of knowing that he has that driving background can give you some of those pointers. That's just such an advantage for a driver who's going to the Xfinity Series for the first time and trying to learn as fast as possible.
Do you have any idea what that means?
Yes.
No, not you. Do you have
You
any
look at
idea
this
what that
here, one of 22 drivers entered this weekend who were born after the first Warp Tour.
means? Do you know what the Warped Tour was or
you know,
is?
you know who's an expert on it.
Who?
The guy to your right.
I thought that's
Come fill us in. Nick Lights, the Warp Tour sponsorship. Tell us more, partner.
This is pretty cool. This is near and dear to my heart, the Warped Tour. I mean, growing up, I was a big emo music fan, punk rock, alternative, whatever you want to call it. They're coming back, the 30-year anniversary. They asked a couple of us to pick 3 songs from some of the bands that are playing this year, and they did a graphic about that, which got a lot of play out there. I'm a huge Taking Back Sunday fan. They're not playing. I've gotten to hang out with them.
What's he saying?
But there's a lot of great bands that are going to the Warped Tour. I'm just saying, you know. Hey,
like
Kim, you're with me, right? Big emo fan?
Oh, yeah. I went to Warped Tour like 10 years in a row, like growing up, and Taking Back Sunday would be on the list. My Chemical Romance would be on the list. And obviously, like the big ones, Blink-182, but I like the smaller bands are what I love. Dangerous Summer, some of those. You know who would love this conversation is Dale Jr.
He would. Kim, they're looking at me and they're saying basically, I'm not okay. Sorry, I'm done.
Dangerous Summer is something that Jamie and I experienced
Every year.
but it had nothing to do with a Warped Tour band. Practice done for the NASCAR Xfinity Series in Phoenix. Justin Allgaier in Group 1 leads the way. Best in Group 2, Taylor Gray. And how about the Toyotas from Joe Gibbs Racing? All 4 of them inside the top 10.
Talked about Jesse Love right there. You see he's in 11th. Sammy Smith, former winner here, Harrison Burton. I can't wait to see like the guys that were in that first session, like how much different is the track going to be for qualifying than the way that they ended.
Yeah, one team that's hoping it's way different would be there in 22nd. Austin Hill, he was not happy with that race car. We heard that report from Dylan about all the changes they were making and all the problems he had. The corner massively disconnected, and that is just so tough to make speed here. But I've seen Austin practice like this and then be fast and qualifying.
Yeah, Blaine Perkins right there. We talked about getting the top 10 last week at COTA. My gut tells me, Parker, that Austin Hill's going to get it figured out.
Yeah,
I think there'll be a connection.
that's probably a good bet to make.
No Fords inside the top 10. Let's get a Ford report. Here's Dylan.
And we're going to catch up with Sheldon Creed, who is 17th after practice. Ran 37 laps, which is as much as anybody. So I heard on the radio kind of what you guys were battling with, but did you feel like you got it better over the course of as many laps as you ran?
Yeah, I mean, I went straight through there and ran 37 laps. So started really low on air and was kind of wishy-washy that first 5 or 6 laps. And then, yeah, I feel close. A couple things to work on, played with some brake bias and just a little things that I could control and little line stuff. So overall, I feel pretty good. A couple things to work on for the race. Hopefully we qualify well here. And, yeah, thankful to have Pit Boss Grills on the car this week. Yeah, have a Ford Mustang that I believe is fast as Xfinity Mobile. Proud of everyone at Haas Factory team. And, yeah, we'll see what we have today.
What's on the grill this weekend? What are you cooking up?
Well, we've actually been grilling the last couple of days here and did some tomahawk steaks, some tacos. The Phoenix grill is awesome. I have a DX series at home now, so yeah, really excited for this partnership with Pit Boss and Road Ranger, obviously friends of Jacqueline, and we're trying to sell more races and get this car, you know, looking good every week. So.
All right. Going to lunch at the 00 pit, Kim.
Yeah, and how about Taylor Gray, fastest in that Group 2 and then fastest of the Toyotas. Did you check all the boxes you wanted to for practice, though?
Yeah, I think, you know, we got a little bit of work to do. I felt like our JGR operation at our GR Supra is, you know, not quite as fast as Xfinity Mobile, but I think we're going to get there. Just got to make a few adjustments for race trim-wise and just get a little better later in the run. But I'm pretty confident in Jason. He's got some pretty good track history here, so yeah, I think we'll be good.
You mentioned race trim-wise, making the right adjustments. How much did the track change during the course of your practice, and then what's the expectation once it gets a little bit hotter under race conditions?
Yeah, I think my expectation is just going to lose total grip, right? It's going to start getting tighter. Track's going to start laying rubber, so just going to have to kind of keep that in the back of my mind, right, when we're making adjustments for the race later on today. And obviously, qualifying is pretty important here, so we got to get a good qualifying lap.
Taylor, a former winner here in the ARCA Menard Series.
Taylor Gray, as Kim pointed out, leading the way for the Toyotas. Hoping to back up what he did in practice in qualifying. We'll have it for you next right here on the CW app.
afternoon of racing.
At 5 o'clock, and we've got a great day for it, Dylan Welch.
Let's check in with Harrison Burton as he awaits his turn to qualify. So we were just kind of hashing out the balance of your race car, but did the track change quite a bit from even the beginning of your round to the end of your round?
Yeah, we waited for, a lap or so to let those guys kind of blow the dust off, and I felt like as the track went, it just kind of, for me, got tighter and
same difficulty as those other smaller tracks.
Yeah, it's just so hard to get heat in the tires during that first lap. If your balance is off, whichever end's off, you either slide the front row bad or you're chatter in the back. And I always felt like this, we call it a short track, but it races kind of like an intermediate. The speed inside the car is incredibly fast.
It's a tremendous balance, isn't it? I mean, this is such a unique place, as we've talked about so many times in so many different ways. Qualifying, one round, one lap, as we talked about it to get it done. 38 cars in. Everybody makes the show. And the first out Dolphin Tran going to make his first start in 2025, driving that 74.
¿Qué tal, gente? ¿Cómo están todos? Bienvenidos. Ahora sí estoy hablando. Ahora sí estoy con ustedes, gente. Muchísimas gracias a todos por estar presentes en esta transmisión. Estamos con la clasificación de la NASCAR Xfinity Series en Phoenix. Estamos preparándonos para lo que va a ser la GoBX 200 en esta pista de 1.6 kilómetros, 1 milla. Hablamos de Phoenix Raceway, la cuarta fecha del calendario. Ya Dawson Cram, máquina 74, con un tiempo de 29 segundos cerrados. Es el primero en finalizar su vuelta de clasificación. Gente, saludos a todas las personas que están presentes acá en vivo. Sale ahora Parker Retzlaff a clasificar, máquina 4. Recordemos que desafortunadamente, ¿no? El día de ayer, perdón, la semana pasada, lo que fue la carrera de Cota, no se pudo clasificar al evento, al igual que su compañero de equipo Brad Pérez en la máquina 45. Fue un día pesado el viernes pasado para los del equipo de Alpha Pride Racing. Estamos viendo en estos momentos a Parker Retzlaff saliendo a clasificar. Dawson Cram es el único piloto que ha podido salir a pista. Recuerden, gente, que de los pilotos que están saliendo a clasificar, todos los pilotos tienen su entrada directa a la carrera. Por eso que no hay problemas en cuanto a los pilotos que vayan a clasificar. No hay ninguna, no hay nadie que vaya a perderse el show en particular. Así que recuerden que para la carrera de hoy nos espera 45 vueltas la primera etapa, 45 vueltas la segunda etapa, 110 vueltas la tercera y última etapa. El más rápido en la práctica fue Justin Allgaier, con un tiempo de 27.685 y una velocidad promedio de 130.034 millas. Estuvo bastante rápido Allgaier durante la clasificación. Sale ahora a pista la máquina número 45. Se trata de Mason Massey, piloto de Douglasville, Georgia. Tres resultados finalizados en el top 10, 28 años de edad. Vamos a ver si es que el 45 regresa a meterse en lo que sería justamente, ¿no?, en la carrera, porque recordemos que la semana pasada Brad Pérez no se pudo meter al show. Cerró su vuelta Parker Retzlaff con un tiempo de 28.092 segundos, así que la máquina 4 por ahora se coloca en la pole provisoria. En estos momentos Sale a clasificar entonces Mason Massey. Veremos a ver qué vuelta registra. En la práctica, Mason Massey fue puesto 28 con un tiempo de 28.469, una velocidad de 126.453 millas. Veremos ahora qué registra. 28.880, 124.65 millas marca Mason Massey en la clasificación. Bastante lento a comparación de lo que marcó durante la práctica. 4 décimas más lento de lo que marcó en la práctica. Interesante. Sale en estos momentos a clasificar ahora la máquina número 14 de Garrett Smithley. Mejor resultado fue quinto lugar en la carrera de febrero del 2016 en Daytona. El piloto de Pensilvania, 32 añitos, del equipo de SS Greenlight Racing. Recordemos que en este auto estuvo Carson la semana pasada, pero que desafortunadamente tuvo que abandonar debido a que, sufrió ese accidente, ese contacto en la curva 6A, que lo mandaron contra la pared. Vamos a ver la vuelta que registra Garrett Smithley. Por ahora 3 autos salieron a clasificar. Smithley, que fue puesto 35 en la práctica con un tiempo de 28.811 y una velocidad promedio de 124.952 millas. Saludos a las personas que están presentes acá en la transmisión. Muchísimas gracias a todos. 29.100 es el cuarto peor tiempo, 123.71 millas. 29.1 marca entonces en la clasificación. Casi se va contra la pared. Repetición acá, viendo acá cómo realizaba su vuelta. Suelto saliendo de la curva 4. De costado, tenía que corregir. Casi visita la pared. Por suerte logra finalizar su vuelta con el auto intacto. Pero bueno, se complicó en lo que fue la parte final de su vuelta de clasificación. No fue más rápido que su vuelta que marcó en la práctica. De hecho fue 3 décimas más lento. El siguiente en salir a clasificar en estos momentos. A ver, mientras tanto, bueno, acá vemos justamente, ¿no?, el volanteo de Garrett Smithley, cómo lo tuvo que evitar. Máquina de 35 ahora, Greg Van Els. La semana pasada fue Baltasar Leguizamón quien estuvo al volante de esta máquina de Allgaier Motorsports. Entrevistan a Nick Sánchez, a ver si escuchemos.
That's what I'm curious to try to figure out, right? I'm still kind of undecided where I'm going to run on the racetrack, so we'll just see these next couple cars that go out and see what our car could do. I hope it's as fast as Xfinity Mobile. We had a rough practice session, so tuning on it, trying to make it better for the race.
29.547 marcaba la vuelta ahí. Greg Van Els se coloca como el quinto peor tiempo hasta el momento. El piloto del Allgaier Motorsports. No fue más rápida que la vuelta que marcó durante la práctica. Tampoco hablamos de Greg Van Els, quien registraba un tiempo de 29.370 durante su práctica. Durante la práctica. Ahora el siguiente salir a la pista se trata de la máquina número 70 de Thomas Annunziata. Desafortunadamente él fue uno de los pilotos que tampoco pudo ser parte de la competencia la semana pasada en COTA, del Circuito de las Américas. Un problema mecánico lo terminó por relegar en las posiciones. Corriendo para el equipo de Derek Cup, el Cup Family. Vamos a ver cómo le va a Thomas Annunziata. Sale de la curva 2, recta posterior. Vemos al Chevrolet número 70. Es el sexto piloto en salir a clasificar. Negociando a las 3 y 4. Alta inclinación acá de 8 o 9 grados. Finaliza la vuelta. 18.114. Se quedó bastante cerca de el tiempo que marcó Parker Reslab, que todavía sigue siendo el más rápido. 128.05 millas. Buena vuelta de parte de Thomas Annunziata. Repito, insisto, todos están dentro del show porque son los 38 autos que están presentes en este fin de semana. Bueno, buena vuelta, buena vuelta de Thomas Annunziata. El siguiente salida a clasificar ahora es Chris Wright. La vuelta de Thomas Annunziata fue 4 décimas más rápido que la vuelta que marcó en la práctica. Thomas Annunziata fue 28.586, puesto 31. Con su vuelta de clasificación, lo pondría como el décimo más rápido en la práctica. Este es Chris Wright. Hasta ahora, bueno, controversia total que ha sido para el equipo del Allgaier Motorsports con Chris Wright, que ha tenido ahí dificultades con Josh Bilicki. Veremos si es que para este fin de semana no se presenta ninguna situación como la que se presentó la semana pasada. 28.375, 126.87 millas. La vuelta de Chris Wright lo coloca como el tercero más rápido. Mejoró su vuelta por medio segundo. Medio segundo más rápido que su vuelta en práctica. Entrevistan a Josh Williams.
I got sick at COTA like Saturday morning, so I've been fighting that all week. I'm not sure what I got going on. I'm gonna take a trip to the infield care center and get some IVs, but yeah, man, this sickness came over me, you know, as fast as Xfinity internet. So, the 811 machine looks pretty good, man, and I think it's one of the best cars I've had here so far. So, let's go have some race.
All right, well, hopefully a good race car makes him feel a little bit better.
I don't know about you, Dylan, but that's a first for me, working Xfinity in that way.
Las palabras de George Williams durante la entrevista. Se sentía bastante enfermo durante la semana pasada. Cuando vemos acá la vuelta de clasificación de Joey Gase, va a número 53, es un segundo más lento que la vuelta que marcó Parker Retzlaff. 29.207 segundos, una velocidad promedio de 123.25 millas para Joey Gase, va a número 53. Lo coloca como el séptimo más rápido hasta ahora en la práctica, en la clasificación, perdón. Joey Gase, que fue puesto 36, no mejoró su vuelta de práctica. Vamos a ver ahora el siguiente en salir a clasificar. Debería ser Brandon Jones. Máquina número 20, el ganador en marzo en 2020, hace 5 años atrás. Su única victoria acá en Phoenix con el equipo de Joe Gibbs Racing. Acá empezaríamos a ver que los tiempos podrían llegar a bajar. Sin embargo, Parker Retzlaff registró un muy buen tiempo, hay que decirlo. Además, el tiempo de Retzlaff es como para colocarlo el quinto más rápido. De hecho, Retzlaff mejoró su vuelta de práctica. Porque, bueno, no, mentira. No mejoró su vuelta de práctica. Vamos a ver qué vuelta registra Brandon Jones, que lo coloca en la pole provisoria. 27.840 segundos, una velocidad de 129.31 millas. Por ahora es el más rápido durante la sesión de clasificación. Han salido 9 autos a pista. Falta el segundo cuarto ahora de pilotos. Sale a pista la máquina 28, el hermano menor de Ryan Sieg, Kyle Sieg. Su mejor resultado en Phoenix, puesto 22, en noviembre del 2022. 7 arrancadas tiene, promedio finalizada de 28.3. Kyle Sieg en la práctica fue puesto número 23, con un tiempo de 28.333 y una velocidad promedio de 127.060 millas. Estuvo a 6 décimas del mejor crono que registró Justin Allgaier. ¡Upa! Cuidado, Kyle Sieg saliendo de la curva 2. Complicadísimo. La vuelta de Kyle Sieg. Negociando la curva 3. A la 4, veremos si es que aún así logra mejorar su tiempo. Lo coloca cuarto, 28.367. Una velocidad promedio de 126.90 millas. Bueno, buen tiempo. Buen tiempo dentro de todo. Buena salvada. Los siguientes en salir a clasificar: Harrison Burton, Justin Allgaier, Carson, Kvapil. Enseguida regresamos, gente, y hacemos una pausa. Y estamos con la Xfinity Series, con la clasificación.
4:30 Eastern, NASCAR Countdown Live for these Xfinity teams getting ready for round 4. We'll see you on the CW racing at 5 o'clock. Parliaments is in the house for NASCAR Countdown Live. And the Cup race tomorrow on FS1. 3:30 Eastern time. You can watch NASCAR's top shelf from here. Bell going for the rare hat-trick. The back-to-back-to-back he'll try to get here tomorrow afternoon. Starting the driver out of Oklahoma. Wouldn't be surprised with him. No, this is because he could be here. Won this race last year. Yeah. 99 Matt DiBenedetto. Watching an old Cup race the other day, Road America. It was like 2021. On that show, Parker. I remember it vividly. And all the time that Matt DiBenedetto said it.
Bueno, gente, acá regresamos, estamos en vivo. Vemos a Diburrito, a Mati Benedetto saliendo a clasificar en estos momentos. Bueno, fin de semana muy triste, la verdad, para Mati Benedetto. Falleció la abuela hace unos días atrás. Así que la mejor de las suertes para Mati Benedetto, que espero que pueda dedicarle un lindo resultado. No puede ser, hermano, no puede. No soy hermano, Dios mío, no puede ser. ¿Por qué salen estas cosas? Dios. Creo que voy a tener que cortar esta transmisión, voy a tener que cortar esa parte. Dios mío, ay Dios mío, ay Dios mío. Por favor, creo que... Ay Dios mío. Creo que me van a funar. Bueno, voy a hacer de cuenta como que no pasó nada. Ay Dios mío. No puedo mostrar imágenes de la carrera porque ya el link este es una... Bueno, ustedes ya saben. Sale a clasificar Harrison Burton. Brandon Jones por ahora es el más rápido con un tiempo de 27.840 segundos. Ah, creo que era... A ver. Ok, creo que ahí debería estar. Por ahora Harrison Burton está marcando un mejor tiempo. Marca un tiempo de 27.929 para Harrison Burton. Lo coloca como el segundo más rápido. 128.89 millas. Alex Bowman de Hendrick Motorsports haciendo su primera aparición con el equipo. Máquina número 17. Tiene una victoria solamente en la serie Xfinity en Charlotte en octubre del 2017 con el equipo de Ganassi. Bueno, estamos viendo ahora a clasificar a Jeremy Clements en su carrera número 501. Acá tenemos al piloto de su propia escuadra. Uy, suelto, saliendo a la curva 4. Se le complica el tiempo a Jeremy Clements. Sin embargo, está haciendo bastante rápido. 29.901 segundos, una velocidad de 129.02 millas. Clements se coloca como el segundo más rápido hasta ahora en la clasificación de los 13 autos que salieron a clasificar. El siguiente en salir ahora sería la máquina número 99 de George Willicke. No sé, o sea, yo porque, a ver, agarré el stream ya acá. ¿Qué pasó? Bueno, pasa que estoy agarrando una señal que para aquellos que lo quieren saber de dónde estoy mirando la transmisión, lo estoy mirando desde Access Stream, se llama la página. Access Stream se llama, a ver, lo voy a dejar acá, no sé si lo conozcan. Pero lo voy a dejar acá el nombre para aquellos que quieran verlo, la transmisión en vivo con nosotros. Sí, literal. No lo puedo creer. Igual lo voy a recortar. Pero justo. Claro, no me había dado cuenta de que este link está rotísimo. Por eso es que salió eso. Pero bueno, no importa. Igual no sabía yo que este link estaba bastante roto. Normalmente uso el desde 12, pero bueno. Esta cosa hay que tener mucho cuidado siempre. Por ahora, Brandon Jones es el más rápido con Jeremy Clement de segundo, Harrison Burton de tercero, cuarto, Josh Bilicki quinto, Sparker Retzlaff, seguido de Thomas Annunziata, séptimo más rápido es Matthew Benedetto, le sigue de Kyle Seacon, Chris Wright, Mason Massey, Dawson Crabb, Garrett Smithley, sale Anthony Alfredo que fue el segundo más rápido durante la sesión de prácticas. En el grupo A fue el segundo más... Bueno, suelto saliendo a la curva 4. Pero vamos a ver qué tal le va en esta sesión de clasificación. Igual yo estoy viendo algo que me parece que es ilegal. Yo estoy viendo ese 42, estoy viendo el guardafango del costado derecho de esa máquina 42. Y hasta donde yo tengo entendido, esa modificación que le hacen al guardafango no está... no es legal eso. Bueno, perdió bastante tiempo. 28.026, una velocidad promedio de 128.45, lo coloca como el quinto más rápido. Yo estoy viendo esa modificación que le hicieron a esa máquina 42 y la verdad que, la verdad que yo no sé, yo diría que NASCAR debería revisar eso, porque creo que esa modificación que le hicieron al guardafango, sacar un tantito ahí como una aleta, como que le hicieron una aleta al costado derecho, me parece que es ilegal. Nick Sánchez sale a clasificar ahora, máquina 48. Nick Sánchez que para este fin de semana, por lo que tengo entendido, tiene un nuevo crew chief, un nuevo jefe de mecánicos. Acá lo tenemos a Sánchez, que por ahora está registrando buen tiempo. Es una décima más rápido que el tiempo que marcó Brandon Jones. Hasta ahora 15 autos han salido a clasificar. Viene el piloto de el equipo de Scoreboard Shera, el equipo de Big Machine Racing. Suelto en la 3 y 4, pero aún así logró registrar un tiempo de 27.586, 130.050 millas. Se coloca en la pole provisoria la máquina 48 de Nick Sánchez, mejorando el tiempo que había registrado Justin Allgaier durante la práctica. Buen tiempo de parte de Nick Sánchez. Acá me preguntaban qué dijo George Williams, y fue lo que había dicho era algo así como que esta enfermedad, la enfermedad que tenía, ¿no?, la semana pasada lo invadió tan rápido como su internet Xfinity. Justin Allgaier el año pasado estuvo cerca de ganar en lo que fue esta edición. Sin embargo, a falta de 5 vueltas, explotó la llanta trasera derecha, si no me equivoco, y terminó mandándolo contra la pared cuando faltaban 5 vueltas. Al final, bueno, se quedó fuera de las chances de poder quedarse con esa bandera a cuadros. 27.776, el más rápido en la práctica. Es el segundo más rápido, 129.60 millas en promedio en la clasificación para Justin Allgaier, para el pequeño lagarto. Recordemos que Allgaier fue el más rápido en la práctica, pero se queda corto para quedarse con la pole. Máquina 44, Brennan Poole, del equipo de Alpha Prime Racing. 2 apariciones en los playoffs de la serie Xfinity, 33 años. Todavía se le ha escapado esa victoria, esa primera victoria en la serie Xfinity. Arranca su vuelta de clasificación, el piloto de Alpha Prime Racing. Un Brendan Poole que durante la práctica, Brendan Poole fue puesto 19 con un tiempo de 28.300, una velocidad de 127.208 millas. Veremos ahora qué marca, qué registra en esta sesión de clasificación. Creo que no está muy lejos del tiempo que marcó en la práctica. Veremos, sale de la 4, recta principal, acaba la vuelta de Brendan Poole, lo coloca puesto 7, 28.012, 128.51 millas. Bueno, la vuelta de Brendan Poole fue casi que 3 décimas más rápido que lo que marcó durante la práctica, así que bien. Sale Carson Kvapil, que fue el tercero más rápido durante la práctica, con un tiempo con una velocidad de 128.848 millas. Un tiempo de 27.940. Solamente hubo 4 pilotos que lograron justamente, ¿no?, romper esa barrera de los 28 segundos. Deporte Libre acá me recomiendan para poder pasar. Sin embargo, no sé si Deporte Libre tiene esta señal de CW Sports para poder transmitirles, porque si no, ahí sí podría quizás de pronto utilizar esa señal. Mientras tanto, vemos la vuelta de Carson Kvapil. 18 autos hasta el momento han salido a clasificar. Recuerden que tenemos con la sesión de prácticas y clasificación de la NASCAR Cup Series. Acaba la vuelta de Carson Kvapil, lo coloca el octavo más rápido con un tiempo de 28.021 segundos, una velocidad de 128.47 millas. Es el octavo más rápido en la sesión de clasificación. Se va preparando Blake Perkins, Ari Almirola también se prepara, al igual que Williams o Walsh. Señores, hacemos una pausa y enseguida regresamos. Estamos en vivo con la Allgaier Series. No, con la serie Xfinity. Dios mío. Bueno, gente, regresamos. Ya la mitad de los pilotos han podido clasificar. ¿Cómo estás, Maxi? ¿Cómo estás, Gato? Saludos. A ver cuándo se junta ahí la manada del MMM. Ahí ya Maxi, por lo menos, ya ganó en cota, señor Hamilton. A ver en qué momento usted se anima a correr la liga de NHSL. A ver si de pronto hay un mano a mano entre Maxi y Hamilton en poco, ¿no? No sé, yo tiro ideas. Después ustedes hagan lo que quieran con esas ideas. Sale a clasificar la máquina 27 de Jeff Burton del equipo del Jordan Anderson Racing. Sale el Bomarito. Arranca la vuelta de clasificación para Burton. Yo estoy viendo algunos que están modificando el guardafango del costado derecho y no sé, pero yo hasta donde tengo entendido NASCAR no tenía permitido eso. Burton fue puesto 20 en la práctica, 28.302 segundos, una velocidad de 127.199 millas. Vamos a ver qué registra en esta vuelta de clasificación. Mucho mejor la vuelta igual, ojo, mucho mejor la vuelta que en lo que fue en la práctica. 27.685. Se coloca segundo más rápido, 130.03. Tremenda la vuelta de Jeff Burton. Lo coloca como el segundo más rápido. Lo coloca como el segundo más rápido. Entrevista a Nick Sánchez, que por ahora es la pole provisoria.
It's right. Yeah, I'm proud of my whole team. You know, everyone in the 48 Big Machine Vodka, Spike Cooler Chevrolet. did a great job trying to be as fast as Xfinity Mobile. So we'll see how we stack up. Should be top 5.
All right, there you have it. He thinks he's going to stick in the top 5. We'll see how long he can stay in P1.
I like the kind of nonchalant, like, it'd be a top 5. Because in your mind, you're like, I hope they all go slower if I'm on the pole.
Bueno, acá está justamente clasificando Tim Thompson. Lo escuchábamos a Nick Sánchez en la entrevista. Vamos a ver ahora cómo finaliza la vuelta de Tim Thompson, que parece que es una buena vuelta, ojo. 3 a las 4. Vamos a ver máquina 26 en donde clasifica, creo que lo va a colocar tercero. Sí, tercero. Tercero lo va a colocar. 27.693, una velocidad de 129.99 millas, 130 millas en promedio, para cerrar, para redondear. Fue el tercero más rápido en esta clasificación, que hasta el momento tiene a 21 autos que han registrado tiempo en esta sesión de quali. Recuerden que tenemos más adelante con lo que es la serie Cup, con prácticas y con clasificación. Sale ahora a clasificar máquina 71 del equipo de Mario Gosselin, el DGM Racing. Ryan Ellis. Acá lo tenemos al 71, al Chevrolet. Finalizó puesto 16 en Cota, su mejor resultado hasta ahora en la temporada para Ryan Ellis. Arranca la vuelta para Ellis. Durante la práctica, este piloto de la máquina número 71 había sido, bueno, puesto 33 en la práctica. 28.721 segundos, una velocidad de 125.344. Veremos si es que mejora el tiempo. Me parece que lo mejora. 28.187, una velocidad de 127.71 millas. Bueno, logra mejorar bastante el tiempo, a comparación de lo que logró en la práctica. Más de medio segundo mejoró el tiempo Ryan Ellis. Entrevista acá a Austin Hill.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely didn't fire off the best with our Bennett Chevrolet. We wasn't as fast as Xfinity Mobile, but we worked through it, you know, throughout practice. I think we had 3 ins and outs during practice, so we're trying to figure out, you know, how much the ins and outs affected our tires for each run. But our very last run, it kind of stacked up with some of the other competitors that they thought that were really good. So I got to the point where I could move around a pretty good bit down in 3 and 4. I was trying some things down in 1 and 2, so not sure how it's going to fire off for qualifying here, but I definitely think that we have a fast Bennett Chevrolet going into the race, especially with how we progressed in practice. So we'll wait and see how qualifying goes. Qualifying is really tough here. You got to hit your marks really well. It's very easy to overstep the boundaries here, so we'll see where we end up, but I think we have a good car.
Bueno, van a trabajar, ¿no?, en el auto. Cuando vemos acá que finaliza la vuelta Ryan C, puesto 15, me esperaba un poquito más de Ryan 16, 28.199. Lo coloca por ahora como el 15º más rápido hasta ahora en la clasificación. Sale ahora a la pista la máquina número 10. Se trata de Daniel Dye. Veo la ventanilla de la máquina 10 de Daniel Dye y no sé, pero parece que está como mal escrito el nombre. La ventanilla trasera. Bueno, ahí justamente como decía Maxi, ¿no?, lo de bastante salido. Pero lo cual eso me llamó la atención, pero en el caso de Alfredo lo tenía bastante torcido. Algunos se preguntarán, ¿no?, por qué el sidegear, ¿no?, por qué ese alerón, esa aleta por qué es ilegal, ¿no?, por qué sería una controversia, porque justamente genera más carga aerodinámica. Vemos a Daniel Dye, máquina número 10 del equipo de College Racing, saliendo a clasificar, negociando la curva 3 y 4, finalizar la vuelta de Daniel Dye, a ver cómo lo coloca. Creo que lo va a colocar quinto, creo. Sexto, lo coloca sexto. 27.878, una velocidad de 129.13 millas. Es el sexto más rápido en esta clasificación. Por ahora Nick Sánchez se está quedando con la pole. Jeff Burton de segundo. Tim Thompson de tercero, cuarto Allgaier, quinto Brandon John. La sorpresa de la clasificación, definitivamente Jeff Burton y Allgaier. Lo veo un tanto molesto a Daniel Dye. Ahora su otro compañero de equipo sale a clasificar. Máquina número 11, se trata de Josh Williams. Acá lo tenemos al piloto de College Racing. 13 arrancadas acá en Phoenix. Promedio finalizada de 23.9. Buena vuelta por ahora de Josh Williams. Durante la práctica, él había sido puesto 30. 28.567 segundos. Pero me parece que esta vuelta va a ser mucho mejor que lo que registró durante la práctica. En la 3 y 4, creo que lo va a colocar quinto lugar, ojo. Si viene una buena vuelta de Josh Williams, quinto lugar. En efecto, quinto lugar. 129.32 millas. 27.838. Mejoró bastante la vuelta que registró en la práctica. Buena vuelta, 7 décimas casi. 7 décimas más rápido que la vuelta. Claro, ese es el problema, Daniel Stevens. Claro, como Deporte Libre no tiene señal de CW, toca transmitirlo con links piratas que son un tanto, bueno, dudosos, cuestionables. Pero bueno, vamos a tratar de que no pase eso lo que pasó justamente momentos atrás. Entrevistan a Burton. Mientras entrevistan a Burton, su compañero de equipo Blake Perkins está clasificando. Ahora tenemos al primo de Harrison Burton. Acaba la vuelta de Blake Perkins, 27.893, lo coloca como el octavo más rápido. 129.06 millas. Bueno, ya estamos en el tramo final de esta sesión de clasificación. Por ahora, el más rápido es Nick Sánchez, se está quedando con la pole. Vamos a ver si el campeón de la ARCA Menard Series en 2022 tiene chances. Sale ahora a clasificar la máquina 07 de Nick Lights, que tiene un patrocinador bastante particular. ¿Quieren un tour? Acá les tengo el tour. El Vans Warped Tour. Es como un evento, ¿no? Como un concierto, por así decirlo. Como un Lollapalooza, por así decirlo. Lo está patrocinando un Lollapalooza. Este es el Vans Warped Tour, donde diferentes tipos de músicos, artistas, bandas se presentan a este evento que dura un fin de semana entero, donde varias bandas van a tocar, y League Lights acaba en el puesto 18, 28.197 segundos, una velocidad de 127.67 millas. Cubano-americano, Almirola, flashback, ¿qué nos muestran acá? El año pasado, la primera visita a Martinsville en el Paperclip. Lograba la victoria y se quedaba con los $100,000. Hablamos del Dash for Cash. Ganaba en Kansas. Se quedaba con la primera de los playoffs. Y en Martinsville lograba su pase a la ronda de 4. 3 victorias para el cubano americano. Tremenda campaña a pesar de correr a tiempo parcial en la categoría. Bien por el cubano, bien por Almirola. Lo decíamos. 8.8 el promedio de finalizada en las últimas 15 carreras para Ari Almirola. 3 victorias, 9 top 5, 10 top 10. Vamos a ver cómo registra, qué vuelta marca el cubano americano. Negociando acá la recta posterior. Es una buena vuelta del cubano americano. Ojo con Almirola. No sé si es para pole, pero va a estar cerca. No le da para la pole, Creo que lo va a colocar tercero o segundo. A ver, segundo. Segundo más rápido. 27.592. Una velocidad de 130.47 millas. Le queda corto el piloto de Jockey Racing. Por ahora Nick Sánchez sigue manteniendo la pole. Sale a clasificar el ganador el año pasado acá en ARCA Menard Series, Williams O'Wallick. Viene de 2 novenos lugares en Atlanta y en Cota. Acá tenemos al piloto que va a disputar el novato del año, el Rookie of the Year, en esta campaña. Uy, suelto, saliendo de la 4, arrancando la vuelta Williams O'Wallick. Me parece que eso lo va a complicar en su intento de quedarse con la pole. Ya es una décima más lento que lo que está registrando el tiempo de Nick Sánchez. Se complicó, la verdad. Ahí Williams O'Wallick en su vuelta de clasificación. Vamos a ver cómo finaliza. Por ahora 28 autos han salido a clasificar. Sigue estando suelto. A ver. ¡Uy! ¡La alcanza! A Williams O'Wallach, la alcanzó a Williams O'Wallach en el tramo final. Tremenda vuelta. Bueno, como dicen algunos, auto suelto es auto rápido. 27.560 segundos. Tremenda la vuelta de clasificación. 26 milésimas más rápido que el tiempo de Nick Sánchez. Venía suelto, pero tremenda la vuelta que marcó Williams O'Wallach. ¿Podría ser esto la pole provisoria? ¿Podría ser esto la pole definitiva? Lo veremos en instantes. Faltan 10 autos por clasificar. Hacemos una pausa y regresamos.
Ear mold having a hiccup is the biggest problem.
Well, and I can tell you, if anybody in the field that can get those fixed, William knows who to call.
He's got some connection, right?
He has a connection.
Just remarkable recovery on that lap, where he started to where he finished. He leads the way. 9 cars to go in qualifying. Can anybody knock him off the top? Opportunity comes in the form of Alex Bowman at 17.
You see him swerving back and forth, going through 1 and 2, just trying to get a little bit of...
Bueno, estamos viendo la vuelta de clasificación de The Showman, Bowman. Vamos a ver cómo lo coloca. Arranca la vuelta de clasificación para Bowman. Ojo con Bowman. Ojo con Bowman. La vuelta de Bowman. Arrancó bien. Ya es una décima más rápido que la vuelta de Williams O'Wallach. De las dos rectas posterior. Es una vuelta tremenda de Bowman. Curva 3. Falta por finalizar la vuelta Bowman. Tremenda la vuelta que se está marcando Bowman. A ver, Bowman. Ponete la ropa, por favor. 27.276. 131.98 millas. Pole provisoria de The Showman de Bowman. Casi 3 décimas más rápido que la vuelta que marcó Williams O'Wallach. Tremenda la vuelta de Alex Bowman. A ver qué hace Sammy Smith ahora. Sale el piloto que ganó acá hace 2 años atrás con el equipo de Joe Gibbs Racing. Es una de sus primeras 2 victorias hasta ahora en la categoría. El quinto piloto más joven en la historia de la serie Xfinity en ganar. Acá tenemos a Sammy Smith. A ver, Sammy Smith. ¿Qué me propone Sammy Smith? A ver, te veo, Sammy Smith. Te observo. Porque me estás registrando una vuelta parecida a la de Bowman. A ver, sube el tiempo. 8 décimas, lo voy a colocar segundo. Lo voy a colocar segundo. O está en verde. O está en verde. O se pone en rojo. No se pone de acuerdo el live timing. Segundo. 27.415. 131.31 millas. Ahora sí nos ponemos serios. Ahora sí la cosa se puso picante. Se puso peluda. Sale Bowman, que por ahora se mantiene con la pole. Es tremenda la vuelta de Bowman. Sale Sheldon Creed. 0-0. El mejor resultado ha sido segundo en noviembre del año 2023. 3 top 5, 6 top 10 en 7 arrancadas. Promedio de finalizada de 6.4. Arranca la vuelta de Sheldon Creed. Bueno, Sheldon. Bueno, Sheldon. En verde. Está en verde. Curva 1 y 2. Sigue en verde. Acelerador, recta posterior. Se pone en rojo ahora. 3 centésimas, 5 centésimas. Entrando a la 3. Observa a Bowman. Y está cerca, pero no le va a alcanzar. Se va a colocar segundo. Se coloca segundo. 27.359. 131.58 millas. Buen tiempo de Sheldon Creed. Buen tiempo. Bueno. El siguiente en salir a clasificar ahora sería Taylor Gray. Queda Taylor Gray, Christian Eckes, Connor Silich, Jesse Love, Sam Mayer y Austin Hill. Quedan 6 autos todavía por clasificar. Sale el 54. Fue el cuarto más rápido durante la práctica. 128.613. Fue el promedio que registró en cuanto a velocidad en la sesión de prácticas. Arranca la vuelta de Taylor Gray. De Joe Gibbs Racing. Vamos al Toyota Supra. Recuerden, junto con Gray quedan 6 autos todavía restantes para finalizar esta sesión de clasificación. Veremos en qué vuelta lo registra. No es una buena vuelta. O sea, para pelear por la pole me refiero, ¿no? Pero lo voy a colocar quizás cuarto. A ver. Séptimo. Ok, me esperaba un poquito más. 130.41 millas. Una vuelta de 27.604 segundos. Christian Eckes. Ganador. En 2023 en lo que fue la carrera de noviembre. Recordando que aquella temporada se generaba, ¿no?, esa trifulca, ¿no?, de los 4 que peleaban por el título, ¿no? Y un Eckes que aprovechaba y se quedaba con la bandera cuadro. Finalizó 2 en Daytona. Puesto 29 en Atlanta. Quinto finalizó en COTA, en el circuito de las Américas. Vamos a ver. Ya ganó en Phoenix. Sabe lo que es ganar. Pero en camioneta. Veremos a ver cómo le va en su primera apertura en esta categoría. Recuerden que Eckes, antes de esta temporada... Uy. Complicado en la 1 y 2. Complicadísimo en la 1 y 2. Se van los tiempos arriba. Estaba bien, bueno, se le fue ancho en la curva 1 y 2. A ver ahora cómo finaliza la vuelta. Creo que lo va a colocar noveno, por ahí, o décimo. Sí, perdió bastante. 16. Puesto 16 para el 16. 128.95 millas. Se complicó bastante Eckes en la clasificación. Ver acá, es como se le mueve el auto. Tuvo que corregir. Qué pena, ¿eh? Qué pena por Eckes. Pintaba bien, pero... bueno, muy desafortunado. Veremos a ver la vuelta ahora que registra el siguiente que sale a clasificar. ¿A quién me refiero? Nada más y nada menos que el ganador de la semana pasada en COTA, en su séptima arrancada. Connor Silich. Luego de 2 resultados, puesto 27, puesto 34 en Daytona y Atlanta, lo cerca que pasó por la pared. Connor Silich, agresivo en su vuelta de clasificación. Aprovechando todo lo que es justamente la pista en particular. Sin embargo, la vuelta no es tan buena que la de Bowman, pero lo puede colocar ahí en un top 5. Viene Connor Silich. Si es una buena vuelta, ojo, puede finalizar ahí quinto quizás, o cuarto. Bien, cuarto. 131.12 millas, 27.455 segundos en la vuelta de Connor Silich. Buena vuelta para el piloto de Junior Motorsports, que ya está dentro de los playoffs. Recuerden que ya hay 3 pilotos que están metidos en la pelea por el título. Jesse Love sale a clasificar. Acá en 2 ocasiones se coronó campeón de la Arca del Oeste. Fue el 11º más rápido durante la sesión de entrenamiento. Vamos a ver cómo figura en esta vuelta de clasificación para el ganador en Daytona. Ganador en Talladega el año pasado. Acá lo tenemos al Samsara número 2. Chevrolet de RCR. Entrando a la curva 3. Creo que es una vuelta para colocarlo tercero o cuarto. Bueno, sube los tiempos, creo que lo va a colocar quinto. A ver acá. Quinto, sí, en efecto, quinto. 130.82 millas. 27.517 segundos. Es una buena vuelta. Ahora faltan 2 pilotos más. Falta Sam Mayer. Y falta también Austin Hill. Vamos a ver cómo sale a clasificar ahora Sam Mayer, máquina 41. Muchas gracias a todas las personas que están presentes acá en esto, lo que es la clasificación de la serie Xfinity. Recuerden que tenemos con la quali, la práctica y quali de la NASCAR Cup Series, y después a las 7 de la tarde, hora de Argentina, tenemos con la NASCAR Xfinity Series, con la carrera, con la GoVX 200. Arranca la vuelta de Sam Mayer. Bueno, la vuelta de Sam Mayer lo puede colocar tercero o cuarto. Bueno, sube el tiempo. Uy, lo va a colocar un poquito más atrás. Sí, lo va a colocar mucho más atrás. Puesto 12. Puesto 12. 27.756. 129.70 millas. Queda un auto solamente. Por ahora el ganador de la pole es Bowman, de Showman. Con Sheldon Creed, Sammy Smith, Connor Sill, Jesse Love. Los primeros 5 lugares. William Sawadich, Nick Sánchez, Almirola, Taylor Gray y Jeff Burton cierran en el top 10. 6 arrancadas en Phoenix. Un top 5. 5 top 10. Promedio finalizada de 9.0. Por mejor resultado, cuarto en la carrera del año pasado. De este evento, la carrera de marzo. Arranca la vuelta de la máquina 21 de Austin Hill, de RCR, ganador en Atlanta. En verde Austin Hill, se pone en rojo. Delanera 2, recta posterior. Por ahora parece que no es una vuelta que vaya a hacer la pole. Creo que Bowman se va a quedar con la pole. En efecto, creo que Bowman se queda con la pole. Bowman se va a quedar con la pole. Alex Bowman, pole sitter. 10º más rápido, Austin Hill. 27.639. Alex Bowman es el ganador de la pole con el equipo de Hendrick Motorsports. Celebra el equipo 17. Entrevistan a The Showman. Tremenda la vuelta de Bowman, insisto.
Honestly, I didn't feel like it was the greatest lap. I missed my entry to one a little bit.
Honestamente, siento que no fue la mejor vuelta.
Yeah, just really happy with the HendrickCars.com Camaro so far. These Xfinity cars are really fun to drive. So thanks to Mr. Hendrick and
estos autos de la serie Xfinity son muy divertidos de conducir. Uy, se me cortó el audio. A ver.
This morning to now, what are you expecting it to evolve to after Cup practice and then the full race distance as well in the Xfinity car?
Yeah, I mean,
¿Qué esperas para la carrera después de la práctica de Cup?
A little bit, you know, we've seen over the years like the apron comes into play a lot in 1 and 2, and the top still comes into play even though they haven't sprayed it in a while. So yeah, looking forward to it. I think the little bit I was in traffic in these Xfinity cars there in practice, like they're fun. So I'm excited about it. Like I said, I think we're a little tighter than we need to be.
Vamos a manejar un poco el tema del tráfico, que es bastante divertido acá sortearlo. Ahí estamos, cuarta pole en la categoría para The Show. Entrevista con Sheldon Creed, que va a largar desde la primera fila con él.
Race trim felt fairly okay, just a little tight and then a little free in qualifying. So,
solo un poco subvirado entrando a la curva y suelto saliendo de las curvas, pero me parece que está bien. He metido una buena vuelta.
yeah, happy to have pit boss grills on the car. Have a fast Ford Mustang this week, and seem to be fast at Xfinity Mobile so far. So we'll keep working hard at it and see where we stack up.
Should be fun to watch Sheldon Creed this afternoon.
And as we look at the starting grid, Kim, I want everyone to focus on the first 4 rows because 11 of the last 12 here have been won from a top 8 starting position.
Yeah, big relief, I think, for Bowman.
11 of the last 12 here have been won from a top 8 starting position.
Yeah, big relief, I think, for Bowman. Everybody.
Bueno, en 8 de las últimas 11 carreras en Xfinity, en Phoenix, los que largaron desde las primeras 4 filas han ganado la carrera. Ahí tenemos la grilla salida. Vemos a Burton, Thompson, Allgaier, Allgaier, Josh Williams, Brandon Jones, Daniel Dye, Blake Perkins, Jeremy Clemens, Christian Eck en la fila 10, fila 11, Harrison Burton, Josh Bilicki, fila 12, Brendan Poole, Carson Kvapil, fila 13, Antonio Alfredo, Parker Reza, fila 14, Thomas Annunziata, Ryan Ellis, fila 15, Nick Lights, Ryan Sieg, fila 16, Matty Benedetto, Kyle Sieg, fila 17, Chris Wright, Mason Massey, fila 18, Dawson Cramp, Garrett Smithley, fila 19, Joy Gaze y Greg Van Els. Ahora tenemos entonces a los 38 pilotos que van a estar tomando la verde para esta GoVX 200 en Phoenix a las 7 de la tarde, hora de Argentina, 5 de la tarde, hora de Colombia. Bueno, gente, nosotros hacemos, nos despedimos, pero vamos a hacer una pequeña pausa. Finalizamos con esta transmisión de la serie Xfinity. Nosotros estaremos en vivo con la práctica y clasificación de la NASCAR Cup Series a las 4:30. Recuerden, hacemos una pequeña pausa, pero ya estaremos regresando con la siguiente transmisión, que es la Cup en Phoenix.